Hey everyone, Larry Walsh here, Challenomics in the margins, and we have had an October surprise. The government's released US GDP numbers, and they are up. GDP grew in the third quarter 2.6%, which is good under normal circumstances, and it's really good compared to what happened the first half of the year. First quarter GDP shrank by 1.5%, second quarter by 1.9%, and by conventional wisdom, that is the definition of a recession, two consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Um, the economic think tank that actually is responsible for declaring recessions hasn't yet. So technically, we're just in recessionary conditions brought about by the high inflation rates and a lot of uncertainty and economic turmoil around the world. Um, but this new GDP number, is this a good sign? Especially considering that we're at really unusually low in unemployment. We are basically still at full employment, and a fair number of businesses are still planning on hiring. Well, this is where we turn to our friends at the Conference Board. Now, the Conference Board is an economic think tank. They're unaffiliated with anyone, so they're just providing research and guidance. And what they say is that the economy is still heading towards recession. According to their surveying, 81% of CEOs say the economy is in a worse position than it was 6 months ago. That's up 4 points. And only 5% of CEOs say that the economy is going to get better in the short term. Most are expecting a recession sometime after the holidays in 2023. Um, but what about tech earnings? We are in tech earnings season, and a lot of the major vendors are reporting fairly good numbers. And Microsoft made their number, Apple made their number, Google was a bit of a mixed bag. But isn't that a good sign? Well, the tech industry is actually signaling that they see tough signs ahead. A lot of categories, a lot of segments, and largely, mind you, on consumer side, but that has a real impact on their ability to spend on B2B, are trending down. Um, that's not good news because that's going to have a ripple effect through the industry and will likely result in a slowdown in new investments and on spending, particularly in areas like marketing and sales. Um, what about what's happening in Europe? Well, as I said, a big contributor to the recessionary conditions that we're all experiencing is the high inflation rates. Inflation still remains above 8% in the US, which is causing a lot of spending to shift from discretionary high value items to necessities like food. In Europe, inflation is above 10%, and the European Central Bank has raised their interest rates by 75 basis points, trying to curb inflation. But let's face it, that's not really going to help. The Europeans are facing uh, a pretty dire winter. Uh, the cost of energy, the cost of food is going up largely as a result of the war in Ukraine. So there's going to be some pretty tough times ahead. What about China? Well, interesting. The Chinese, after a delay while they were going through the Party Congress, they finally released their GDP numbers, and they said that they grew about 3.5, 3.6%. Sounds pretty good, but analysts say that the Chinese typically inflate their GDP by 3 to 5%, which means that they could likely be in a recession, which makes sense because China is still implementing rolling lockdowns to contain COVID spread. And they're also seeing a sharp decline in manufacturing. A lot of companies, a lot of countries are repatriating their manufacturing or moving their manufacturing out of China and into other parts of the world. Um, so, look, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I felt because I've been talking so much about the economy and economic conditions to provide a quick update. The outlook still remains the same. Still looks like we're going to be going into recession sometime after the holidays. It's going to be somewhat mild in the US, severe in Europe, and uncertain, but still have recession conditions in all other parts of the world. That's about it for now. So please check out the resources we have here at Channelnomics. Our Channel Recession Survival Guide is available on our website. The link is below. It's free to everyone. It talks about how you can use the channel to mitigate the effects of a recession. Our friends at the Global Technology Distribution Council, GTTC, also has a guide for how to use distribution as a countermeasure to recessionary conditions. Again, that's it for now, folks. If you like what we're doing here, hit like, subscribe to this channel, check out our other podcasts, Changing Channels, and tell your friends. Really appreciate it. See you next time.